Okay, at 6 o'clock, we'll call the meeting to order. Roll call, please.
Supervisor Gens?
Here.
Supervisor Nuno?
Yeah.
Brookhouse? Gama?
Here.
Gashke?
Here.
Beardson? Kirby? Here.
Okay, let the record show that those who are not here, I'll excuse them since it's a different day. And we'll see what happened with them, but I will mark them as excused. So, moving on to citizens' comments. Any citizens wishing to speak? Any citizens wishing to speak? Any citizens wishing to speak? Seeing none, citizens' comments are closed. Reports from the chair. I have no reports. Reports from the committee. Approval of minutes, January 16th, 2025. Been moved by Supervisor Nudo, seconded by Vice Chair Gashke to approve the minutes. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Those are passed. Taba, fourth quarter report. Brock?
Thank you. Good evening, Brock Portillo, North Area Business Alliance, here to report on the fourth quarter loan activity. I guess, first I'll start off just by thanking this committee and the county for their support again with the budget, with the county service contract, and the continued support into the high impact fund. Greatly appreciate that. I think this is the first time I've seen this committee since then. So sincere thank you for that. In the Q4 loan activity, I'll kind of cover those first two bullet points there together because the message is pretty similar. You'll see a couple of pending commitments in the EDA and the EDA CARES Fund totaling $2.6 million. Those are low interest loans, which is great. We've kind of talked about how loan activity has been a little bit slower, and we're trying to get more aggressive with our outreach and deploying the funds in the community. In both cases, those are for two specific projects that have not been formally announced yet. But say they're existing businesses in the community that are looking to do real estate and equipment expansion projects within the county. So those are good projects. They're in our underwriting and approval process right now. And I'm hopeful that those will be closed sometime before the end of the second quarter to be funded. So good news there on ramping up some loan activity. I'll say just kind of a side note on the EDA fund, which I kind of count as like the EDA legacy fund. We do have an opportunity to defederalize that fund. So we are working with the EDA on that. We'll work with the county on kind of what we need for documentation. But, kind of to be determined, but I would look for that to come in front of the committee there. As far as that's concerned, we'll get into more details on that, like when you have the paperwork in front of you, but kind of all things considered, business as usual as far as we're concerned. The money stays in that fund. It'll continue to operate as a low interest loan fund. Defederalizing the fund kind of cuts some of the strings or compliance reporting or things that we need to do like on an administrative side. And I know like Patty is familiar with that, sitting on our audit committee. That would kind of lessen one less program that kind of comes out of the single audit compliance testing. So to be determined, but just kind of a heads up on that for now. No other new loan activity in either of those two funds or in the county revolving loan fund. I would note you have a listing of all the active loans attached in the report. There are no loans in arrears or in default, so all of the active loans are in good standing. Of course, I would point that out if there were not. And then on the last item, the high impact fund, you'll just see some pending loan activity there as well of 1.45 million. We've talked about a couple of those before relating to Concept Laboratories, and for the West Rock relocation, there is a new one there. But again, that hasn't been publicly announced yet. So we do have an approved commitment for that. kind of TBD of when we can disclose that information as well. It's kind of all I got. The only other notable item I wanted to point out is our the CAVA financial audits have started. Been going on for a couple of weeks now. Of course, our expectations is a clean audit opinion as usual. Of course, we'll come back and report to this committee any results. Okay, happy to answer any questions.
Ready? My question would be, I know that there's one or two you can't comment on, but how does the pipeline look? What are we getting for feelers? You know, how,
Yeah, it's not slowing down, right? I mean, some of these projects that have been announced with, WestRock or Microsoft or Lilly, like these are things that, we've been working on for a year and a half or so. These things you probably heard this from me, but they're bigger and bigger projects and kind of take longer to get to the finish line or the announcement finish line. But I think my message would stay the same of like, we're still well positioned with available land and or buildings for companies that are looking to invest in Kenosha County. We have ample capital in these loan funds to help support them in relocations or expansions. So yeah, it's positive, there's always, it kind of ebbs and flows, but the number of RFPs that come across the desk on any given week is, it's not tipping off.
okay, good, because, I mean, when you're working on big projects, I understand it takes a little more time to get a Lilly or Microsoft or something. I'm curious to see when those are announced, what kind of jobs we're looking at, job numbers, et cetera. Also looking forward to hearing the housing report on how we're gonna house these people. Also, how we're working with the schools to get the properly trained workforce, that this all ties together, so.
Absolutely. Yeah, and I know Nicole met with you guys last month, and I think she's scheduled for next month and working on some materials for that housing initiative to share with you. So I guess you'll be seeing a lot of us here over the next couple months.
Thank you very much. Anything else from the committee? Okay, thank you.
Okay, thanks.
Public Works, a resolution for vendor permit agreement, which includes lease of land with Whenever Water Sports.
Yes,
Or it's wherever, whenever.
thank you. Good evening. Yeah, so as stated, it's a resolution for land lease agreement with Whenever Water Sports for the purpose of renting kayaks and paddle boards within Silver Lake Park. I can give it a quick overview. Kenosha County has space available within Silver Lake Park, located at 27,085th Street in Salem, whereas Whenever Water Sports will use approximately 750 square feet of space, as presented in Appendix A for the purpose of renting kayaks and paddle boards. It's up on the far end near the wooded area, near the beachfront. Whereas the Parks Division will receive 12.5% of gross revenue of any rentals sold within the leased area. And this arrangement will afford for more rental opportunities to the community and allow for lifeguard staffs to attend to be fixed solely on the safety of the park patrons. So that line there is probably the most important out of this entire resolution. The dollar wise, it, at least from what we're seeing on the front end, is comparable to when we held our own rentals of the kayaks and paddle boards. But what this allows for is during busy seasons, the lifeguards are the one who are renting these kayaks and paddle boards out. So they have to shut down the service in order to be able to attend the water for safety purposes. With having Whenever Water Sports, which is pretty much like a vending machine of kayaks and paddle boards, the patrons can rent it themselves and the lifeguards can stick to lifeguarding. That's my spiel.
Committee. Supervisor Nudo.
How much are we looking, dollar wise?
So,
The 12.5%, but what are we looking at?
yeah, the initial estimate is around 5,000, which is pretty even to what we get when we do it ourselves. Obviously, we don't know for certain. There could be potential for slightly more, being that there's going to be more opportunity for rent, but for right now, we're seeing pretty much a wash for what we're already providing.
And, is there any expenses that we gotta cover or is they gonna?
No. They do all the maintenance. They'll come and review it. They build it. We are simply leasing the land and getting a percentage of the revenue.
Anybody else? Okay, similar to the bike racks, how we do that, where people just do that themselves. I saw the pad. What's actually gonna be on that?
That I don't know. I would imagine it's some type of wood structure or metal structure. I don't know if it mentions in the actual agreement. I didn't go over that specifics with them before coming here. From my understanding of it, it's a structure that you're gonna get a code for any kayak or paddleboard that's kind of locked in. How it's locked in, I'm not certain. Once you pay, it unlocks, it pays by the hour, so it charges you for whatever amount of time you're out. When you put it back into that slot and close it, it then provides the receipt.
And it doesn't just tell us at a paddleboard station, it doesn't say how it's
Well,
made.
that's what I saw, and I was kind of curious as to what that would look like.
Looking at the blue line and the dots that probably where they got covered or something, just lots of that. But
Well, it says that they can build a station anywhere in that blue box, is what they said. And I'm wondering what a station looks like or what this is.
Yeah, I mean, I can get a picture of it from whenever water sports, or I can touch base with Wyatt. He's just welcomed his first baby boy this morning, so that's why I'm in his presence, but I mean, I can get that provided. I don't know what it exactly looks like.
Okay, because I want to know what's being built there and what it's gonna look like. I'm not gonna hold anything up. I mean, I agree with it, but I mean, it is our land. I want to know what's going on it.
Sure.
So I don't know if you can email the committee.
Yep.
Patty, you can forward that to me somehow.
Yep. Yeah,
And we'll take that as an answer, but I kind of want to know what it looks like.
we'll get that.
I get the gist of it, but I don't know. All right, anything else? There you go. Google it.
you lost it, you gotta get it back.
Make it work. Time out.
It's the blind meeting the blind here.
Alright.
Just grab it from the sides.
Okay, so is this all we're looking at though? I mean, there's just gonna be no structure. There's just gonna be like the bike racks. Is that what we're looking at? Just the racks of kayaks?
I won't say one way or the other, because I really don't know.
Water sports.
Okay. Alright. Yeah. I mean, you could just call me and let me know if that's what it is, cause that's pretty simple, just a rack and somebody,
Yeah,
maybe a coin thing or something.
Yeah, looks
So
like
I thought there was a wood structure and we're having something built on there.
that was
I don't
my
know.
assumption, but I could be assuming completely wrong.
Yeah.
So I'll get a copy of it. I'll email out to the.
So
Thank you very much. All right, hey, can I have a motion?
Motion to approve.
It's been moved by Supervisor Kirby, second by Supervisor Nadeau. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That passes.
Thank you.
Sheriff. Resolution to accept grant funds offered through Wisconsin Department of Justice for the 2025 J multi-jurisdictional blah, 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 Southeast Area Drug and Pussy Dog.
Mhm.
I present, the resolution to accept the CDOT grant. This is a grant that we have, historically had every year. Supports our, drug unit. Total is, almost $200,000. Just over $200,000. The KDOG will get 53,000. The rest of that money will be distributed among the other 4 counties involved in the grant. Our finance people handle the distribution and accounting for that and report back to the state. So I would recommend accepting this. It is an important part of our funding for our drug unit.
Anything else?
No.
Thank you. Committee?
I move that we accept.
It's been moved by Vice Chair Maschke, seconded by Supervisor Kirby to accept. Okay, I approve these all the time and I love it. Do we have enough money in there for what we do with it?
Yeah, it's already accounted for.
Okay,
We thought you guys would approve it. So we have plans for the money. It
Okay.
includes overtime and some equipment.
overtime?
Yeah, it's grant funded overtime for drug operation.
For the actual operations for when they're going out and doing it?
That's
Okay,
correct.
all right,
Mhm.
okay. Is that mainly what it's used for? Is that the time spent on those jobs? And
Time spent and equipment.
Okay.
That's used for drug cases. It's very restricted as to what it can be used for. And we stay within those guidelines.
do we have any other funds in a drug interdictment or anything? What do we have? What does that look like?
There's
This
other
is a
grants.
piece of it, but
There's other grants. And the KDOG has its own budget line, so there's money in there. The feds provide us with, I believe, 5 or 6 different grants when it comes to different types of drug investigations. So they reimburse us for overtime out of that.
okay. Thank you. Did you have a question? Your
Yeah,
hand started to come up.
Yeah. sorry.
Supervisor Kirby.
So does like the state of Wisconsin have this money now and then they distribute it to the counties? Or is this something where we directly work with the feds in order to get this money?
This is done through Wisconsin Department of Justice.
Okay,
It's a consortium, isn't it, where we are the hub and then
Yes.
we distribute it out to the different other
Okay.
counties.
For the cost and then we
Right.
submit documentation for reimbursement.
okay,
As do the other counties.
Mhm.
okay. I wanted to make sure we're definitely getting it.
We're getting it. That doesn't rotate, we stay that way, or does it rotate each year to a different
So
county
we-
game?
I think we're going on 5 years.
Okay, all right.
But
That's
there's
kind of what I thought, but
Yeah.
I
and
remember.
there's other grants that are joint as well,
Mhm.
and then other counties take those, so it ends up pretty even. And then
Okay. Anything else from the committee? It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That passes unanimously. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Sheriff, notification of medical services for corrections, RFP number 2421.
That is our healthcare provider in jail. We have an RFP for request for proposal for a new contract. Today we had an extensive meeting with Matt Funding and the entities from Vital Core is the company that we're working with right now to get that RFP done. So hopefully they'll be taken over by March 31st.
Should get the RFP done or get,
The RFP is in the final stages, going back and forth between legal teams, so just gonna.
and then we're gonna put the RFP out there for medical.
Oh, we already have, that's already done, this is the return, right? We have the vendor, we selected the vendor.
Okay,
Vital Core. They are currently in Racine County as the medical provider for Racine County. Once all the legal back and forth, we'll have an idea. We don't have a red line copy currently for our own present to you guys. So I got something late this afternoon. There's some language about, IT services that we have to get fixed, and then it'll go back. So we're hoping, the idea is to go, they'll be live April 1st.
My question is, can you walk us through what that picture looked like before and why we're making this change? And what the advantage to the change is? Give us a little bit of background on it.
So NAFCare had put in a request to sever services.
Okay.
So we went out to RFP. I mean, I think they bit off more than they could chew. They're a very large corporation, right? But they're more in the south. So I think there's, as you guys know, there's difficulties recruiting in the jail in general, right? And then, so they had the same difficulties that we have every day in terms of getting medical professionals in there. So this is more localized company. Like I said, they're in Racine, so they're hoping that the workforce could be shared. They're from Topeka, Kansas, so they're a little bit more north than Alabama. A little bit more.
So did somebody do a cost benefit analysis for these to see, I mean, look at what Racine's costs were compared to what our costs were with the other company to see?
We haven't compared against other companies, but what we did was, took what were some high level estimates that we were given, and compared it to what we pay today. I don't want to, they're still working through finalizing
Sure.
everything, so I would say directionally, it's gonna be higher. But this company also says that there are other aspects where we send inmates out today for like offsite medical services where they may be able to, provide additional services maybe that the current one couldn't. So what we did is we didn't just compare like the contract line in our budget. We also took into account pharmaceutical, which is another portion that's going to be negotiated because we're going to go with a third party versus where NAFCare today is all the pharma is with them. So we're hoping that we'll get some benefit in some of those other lines that may help mitigate some of the risk from the
I get it.
contract.
We only had 3 returns, so three companies put in, 3 responses. So,
Yeah.
based on the scoring system, they came to help.
And so keep in mind, NAFCare is the company that we have currently, and they said we're done.
Yeah.
So it wasn't like we said, oh, we want to stay with you. We couldn't do that. So the RFP then brought in bids of who could provide the services, and the negotiations at the time there was with that.
Okay. I would like make sure we remember what we're paying now so that when we look at this in a year or something after we get them, I'll be curious to see just what that looks like as far as a trend and how that maps out with costs. I do understand that you can't look at just a number and a number.
Yeah.
I mean, there's all things that roll into it. I understand that 100%. But what I want to know is when you roll all that in, I mean, how much more are we paying? How much less are we paying? Is it fairly comparable? I'm just curious about that.
Yeah, and we
So,
should, once we're up and running with them,
Right.
that should be something after a few months that we could.
yeah,
come
it
back
will
and
take at least
give-
quite a
give
few
a glimpse
months. I
into
mean,
like
half a
what
year to.
we're
sure.
seeing.
Yeah, because like Kelly said, the response to the RFP was, so right now, currently, with our current vendor is, if someone has urgent care needs, we'll say, right? Like if you were to go to urgent care, so those typically are being sent out, right? This provider has stated through the RFP that they're able to provide more services in-house, right? Including diagnostics, x-rays, labs, things like that, which currently we're sending out. So, and we've sat and, go ahead.
No, I was just
Jen,
gonna say, could you walk through what that entails as far as cost when we
Yeah.
have to send someone out?
Yeah, I was just gonna touch on that because that's part of our conversations that we've had in past meetings, right, of hospital guards, right? So it's part of the overtime talk. Every time an inmate goes out, the deputy has to come, take them to the hospital, sit with them for however long diagnostic stay at the hospital. Sometimes it turns into an overnight stay and we have to guard them, right? So with this new vendor, their RFP says we can provide these things in-house. So as you know, like in our budget, those costs were becoming astronomical, right? Our outside medical care costs, that was not part of the contract. You know, all that, when they send even a lab draws, right? They have to send them, bring them to the lab, a deputy has to transport them to the lab. So there's a lot of costs that's associated with that. So we're hoping that, like Kelly said, that we'll see some savings by tracking that stuff, like you say. And we can see some cost savings there, but obviously when you.
Yeah,
talk
I mean,
about
I don't, it's a reality of doing business. I understand that. You know, so I'm not looking at, I'm just curious
Yeah.
from my point of view, what it looks like as a snapshot now and what it looks like. And you're right, they have continually went up with all the things we've had to do financially over the time I've been on the board. So
Right.
I'm curious to see what it all looks like. And do we have like an area where we have the ability to do that kind of stuff in-house?
Well, you mean, yeah.
Well, what do you mean
we have
in-house? They can do it right there on site
Or
or?
they have their own like areas, right? It's, looks like a walk-in clinic, right? And that out at KCDC, it's actually been built out a little bit.
Oh, okay, all right.
We have medical isolation cells, we have everything. We have a
Okay.
dental office up there, yeah, so everything's here.
I look forward to seeing those comparisons and seeing how that works out. Hopefully, at least we can break even, if not, get some type of
We're
savings.
hopeful.
The goal is to capitalize on the expertise that they're selling.
Right,
So if we're able to do that, we should be able to save
Right.
money several different.
Right. This is just that basically them reporting this to us, right? There's nothing, no action.
Yeah, there's nothing yet.
Correct.
Okay, and what is it, before I finish, after I've plugged up all the time, what is, what's the timeline for that?
April 1st, hopefully.
Okay,
So hopefully they'll go live.
okay. May, do you have anything else? Okay, seeing nothing, thank you for that update. Pat Sheriff overtime report.
Overtime.
I thought we were for trying.
OVER.
Really excited.
Someone bring up those. First of all, I just want to make a correction on your guys' document that we provided. So on the second page of the document, my map, as Barna and Kelly know, is not great. It says Collins and we're 250 in quarter 4. That actual timeframe is from September 1st to January 31st. So I think at our last meeting together, we talked about Collins being an issue and I was going to track them for you. So quarter 4 is not correct. It's September 1st, 2024 to January 31st, 2025. That's the time we tracked. I just want to put that there. That's all we got. Thank you.
Supervisor Nudo.
What was that? What's queso? Queso,
Case
queso,
Sheriff's Office.
what?
Sheriff likes cheese.
I'm sorry, queso. Yeah.
No,
what is that?
sheriff's office.
Kenosha? What happened to KSD?
We're sheriff's office now, sir.
What was that?
Is this Kenosha Sheriff's Office? Is that what that?
When was that
Thought it was
changed?
a shit.
Big pardon?
When was
That
that
area is a
changed?
dip off.
January 1, we started using the Kenosha Sheriff's Office.
I mean, when I ask him not, I mean, I don't have a problem. I'm really being bold. I don't like changes. You know, I'm sure you guys got a reasons to do it.
Sure, we actually,
But, I'm kind of, trying to find the right word, maybe disappointed.
Bless you,
or
Supervisor Nudo, but.
big pardon?
upset or disappointed that nobody let us know. Actually, I saw this in the paper or somewhere.
We've actually been talking about it for a very long time. There's only, after our change, there's only 2 agencies left in Wisconsin that are department.
Oh.
There's only 2 left. They've been, over the last decade, many have switched. There's been a big push for the last decade. I'm not the sheriff of the department. I hold an office, right? As you know, it's an elected office, constitutional office, and I hold that office of sheriff. Confusion, as to what the authority of the office holds, none of that has changed. I'm still the sheriff. I still come to you, questions and permissions and things, but the reality is that, when it hits the fan, you know, we don't have a point, bring a whole bunch of people in to discuss it, right? The decision have to be made quick. And that's the whole point.
Oh, no, and I'm not.
As you know, you were
Yeah,
around.
I'm not disagreeing on that, and I'm
Sure.
not questioning that part.
Mhm.
Is when you decide, you know, it would have been nice to let the board know, hey, that's what we did. Not to discuss whether you could do it or you should do it or whatever. Because it's, I hate to read what's going on in the county to read it in the paper. So
Okay,
please
I
understand,
appreciate that
I'm not saying that,
Sure, I own that.
you know, I'm not asking, why did you do it? You know, I appreciate you explaining the reason why. And as I said before, I'm sure you got your reasons and, to do it, which is fine. I wish we would know, I say, even after it's done, before it goes public, you know, used to say, this what we did, it's going to public. Sure. So that was my only.
Okay. I was really starting to get fired up and then we got on the name.
Yeah, plus I'd like to save some time.
Thanks, sir.
We appreciate your time.
You are a comedian. You do have, yeah. You're good. You're good. Yeah, you're good.
I just need to make sure you stay here.
Okay, you provided this. Now, we should just ask questions about it? Is that how you want to do this?
Whatever you want. I mean, if you guys want to ask questions, we can.
I mean, do you have more you want to say? I guess I don't want to jump in and start asking questions unless you've discussed anything you want to discuss with us.
I can tell you what we've done since we've met last, right? In terms of, or I shouldn't say me, but my fine captain back there, Captain Klinkhammer went to a conference with our telestaff, right? That's our time system, that we report. And we enter all of our pay and stuff in, right? So since Q4, he's created a bunch of codes that we now know we can use to better track overtime, what you're looking for, right? So just on the sworn side of things, he was able to give me numbers this morning about like what the deputies completing their assigned caseload, like how many hours in Q4. That was 604. Hospital guards that we talk about on a normal basis here. It's just other agencies backfilling people pay time off. Or backfill for training, TRT calls, conveyance overtime. So we're able to now start to get data, right? And start to be able to figure out exactly where are these numbers coming from. So in the past, when we had paper time cards and the system's been robust, but we didn't know about it, right? So him going to that conference this year, he met with the team there and try to figure out how can we better track things. And that's what came out of it. So that's something that we started doing since you've been asking for specifics, right? So we're, as you can see, I know it doesn't look great, I mean, on paper, but it never does, right? Overtime is the nature of our 24/7 operation. You know, there's many different things like that we can talk about. Where is it happening? Why is it happening? Detentions, those are the biggest numbers. But we talked on the phone about unspent salaries, right? But it's kind of a facade or a fake number when you see that we're zero, right, in openings. But we have 28 people in training currently, 28 correction professionals that are currently being trained. So that's 28 salaries plus their FTOs, 28 salaries, and then the FTOs get paid overtime, an hour and a half per day.
They're supposed to be filling.
So the unspent salaries isn't there, right? But the people are in their spots, but they're not in positions that will help us alleviate the overtime. So I don't know if that makes sense in terms of detentions. I mean, there's projects. So like we have an HVAC project that's going on at KCVC. Every time a contractor comes in, I have to assign a DSO or a correctional officer, right, to sit with that contractor the entire time. That's not pre-planned most of the time. They just, the ground's too soft. We can't come today. We're gonna come next Thursday, right? Those are some of the things that come up, you know, so when a contractor needs the medical provider right now, we had the meeting, we're trying to wring our brains figuring out, okay, where's all this coming from? Current medical provider holds more sick calls than our previous medical provider, right? Because that's their level of liability comfort. So now those medical escorts create overtime, right? And you're at the availability of the doctor when the doctor who's on staff can come in. Sometimes pre-planned, sometimes not so much, right? So we do our best, you know, I mean, and my numbers, they look a little bit better, 250 call-ins in a 5-month period. Right, that's a lot of call-ins and that's a lot of backfilling and overtime. And we can't, you know, we talk about collapsing zones and trying to do the best we can with manpower, but either we're gonna pay $2 point whatever million overtime, or we're gonna pay $6 million in a lawsuit, right? Because there's not enough coverage, there's not enough staff to make sure that the inmates are safe. I don't have the perfect answer for you, right? I mean, again, like I've talked about in this meeting, I've talked about everybody within the team of the county is, if we had the A plus B equals C solution, we would be rich, all of us, because we would write that paper and then we would be on every podcast from here until, you know, the West Coast, East Coast, South, whatever, right? So we're trying to do a better job of figuring out where are we spending the money. And you can see our numbers went down since these conversations have happened. Like the sheriff likes to tell a story about, he's the only one in the parades. We're not doing dog and pony shows. We're not going to National Night Out. We're not, you know, if calls come in for us to show our new canine Joy, right? If it costs overtime, the answer is no. So that's what we're doing.
And I really love the data, and I think that we can certainly use data moving forward. These are a big jump in overtime. So we might improve, not improve. The number that we're at now is the second highest since 2019. I don't know what happened in 2022 where we had all those vacancies, whether it was COVID related or what. Not really sure, but taking a step back, I understand, and you never have to explain if there's an unexpected, you know, an unplanned thing that you need to spend overtime for. I get it. You will never get a gripe from me on that. Okay, I understand that stuff happens, but I'm looking at planning and budgeting and how we're attacking this. That's what I'm looking at in the big picture. Now, as I've been doing this for 17 and a half years or whatever, overtime has always been an issue. Okay, it's not going to go away. You're right. There's no magic crystal ball that can get us to figure it out. But I also know that back in the day, we had ICE detainees and we had marshal detainees and whatever we had, where we had a lot more inmates. And we used to be able to move that money that we made from that to cover other areas. Well, that's not the case now. And we knew that wouldn't be the case. So that has to change how we budget and how we look at numbers. Just has to, because we don't have that. Also, the vacancies. You guys have got, you said 0 in corrections but 28 in training.
For today.
For today, I get it. But, you know, there were a lot of holes to fill, both in patrol and in corrections, and we were able to use that vacancy money to fill other holes. So when we're down at the last finance meeting, and I hear that we're, you know, $850,000 of the sheriff's department in the hole, and I look at Barna and go, what? You know, I mean, where did that come from? You know, why is that there? And I just don't know if that's why I asked for what are the budgeted numbers for overtime and what are we actually spending? I don't know how we need to get to the point where we'll never be able to say, all right, this is what we're gonna spend, we're never gonna go over budget. I get it. But there's, the gap seems to be getting bigger and bigger. And I keep, from a being fiscally responsible standpoint, I'm having a hard time with that. And then it was in operations or revenue, or, I mean, I did it again, 675 for a sheriff operating expenditures deficit. I think that is overtime. 675 and 125 in, I'm stealing your thunder in the general fund report, but, sheriff operating revenue deficit, 125,000. So, I guess what I'm looking at is not. I understand training, I understand not being prepared, just sudden things that come up that we have to spend money on. I understand that, but I need to know that our budgeting is looking as close as it can be to where we're at. I mean, do they turn a budget into you and you analyze it and cut things out, or how does the budgeting work?
Well, depends on which year. Some years they turn in a budget and it's millions of dollars. And the entire county can only absorb $2 million for a 2.5% increase. So then we work with the department to figure out how we can get clear that back. This last year, we didn't have a fiscal manager, so myself and the assistant budget director took it upon ourselves to try to analyze as much as we could in that time period and put the budget together the best we could. So.
I just, there's, I mean, when I get a call from Patty after the last finance meeting, she's, oh, our sales tax are up. That's good. We can cover some, that's great, but that doesn't look at really what the core of the problem is. I don't know if I'm not seeing this right, or if.
No, if I may.
Go ahead.
We did meet earlier this week, that would be yesterday, sorry. And in that conversation, I mean, looking at this hours report, so they provided this, but I provided this. Because one of the areas that I was struggling is we have increased correctional officer wages by 30% since 2019. So how much of this impact is because of the wage increase? We capture that in salaries, but do we capture that in overtime? Overtime has just always been a blanket number, and there was always vacancy, or overtime, especially in corrections, was driven by an increase in their census, the ICE inmates. So I had done analysis on this in 2015 that I presented to the finance committee. That showed a direct correlation that there were increased ICE inmates. And so there was overtime to cover that, but there was revenue offset. So you identified that in the beginning. But always, Dave would always say too, we budget salaries at 100%. So the overtime line really is just a number, because that overtime, if it's driven higher than that number, is due to vacancies, which are decreasing the salary line. But this situation here, so when they had the huge number of vacancies, that's one of the reasons why wages were increased, was to get people in the door. And it did that. And so that, I think, explains the spike in 23. And I'm looking specifically at DSOs and COs, not so much deputies. You can see deputies really hasn't changed, other than a significant decrease.
And I noticed that on the graph too. That's pretty consistent.
Yes. So DSOs and COs are where you saw the spike in 23, and then it's slowed down in 24. So 23 is when they would have filled those vacancies and been training those people. So that made sense. But then 24, although it went down, it didn't drop considerably. But as Chief Deputy just explained, that's because although the vacancy number isn't there, the turnover still is. So there are always people training. We are at a point now where now we do have to look at this in the budget. We do have to say these numbers are not high enough. And how do we address that? And we will look at that. We don't have that answer today. We don't know what that answer is yet. But
Just so you're thinking about it.
Yes,
Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
We
yeah,
do
I mean,
now. And the call-ins being the other thing, the huge number of call-ins, those are filled with overtime. So
Yeah, so,
that was,
yeah.
yeah,
So we talked about, like, I think when we were here, we were 15 overhires, right? And then like I said, that's what I said, knock on wood, right? We went to -8 a month later, you know?
Yeah.
So one of the things that we did, our FTOs are extremely burnt out, right? I mean, this has been an endless cycle, you know, for years of the turnover, the training, right? So I'm asked every single staff meeting if we can pause hiring. Right, and I'm no, we can't, right? If we pause it, we're gonna end up double digits down again. So what I asked the captain to do is revamp the onboarding process to extend it, right? Right now it's 3 weeks, right? 3 weeks, is that correct? And I asked them to push it to 5, right? The academy for a jailer is 6 weeks long. So if they do 5 weeks of in-house state curriculum, they're training them at pretty much everything they're gonna get in the jail academy. It gives the FTOs on the back, in the front end, a little more time without a recruit every once in a while. These recruits will come out of this 5-week onboarding, we call boot camp, right? They'll come out of boot camp, a higher level skilled personnel, right? And that will hopefully not, because what's happening is they're going through this thing for 3 weeks. They go through their 3 months of training. They get on their own and they realize they're in a dormitory with 50 inmates and they freak out. And then we don't even send them to the academy yet, right? And they're leaving. So we need to figure out how do we make sure they're more prepared on the front end by extending that boot camp and getting them to be better trained. We pivoted and we started sending them to the academy sooner. So when they come back, they're still gonna have that boot camp, right? They're still gonna have that extended training, but they're not getting to an FTO. So the overtime cost of being with that FTO goes down a little bit, right? I don't want to have false expectations that it's going to disappear, but they're going to be a higher, hopefully trained individual that is going to hopefully be retained because they're not going to have the same fears that they have after. Yeah.
Expectation of the job.
So it's a tough job. We just have 5 new hires today. It's the most difficult job, and you guys have heard me say that over and over in our profession. No, hands down, 24/7 care of inmates is not anything to blink an eye at, right? So we collectively as a team in the county we're racking our brains trying to figure out what that formula is to retain employees, make sure they're properly trained, and at the same time be cognizant that overtime is an issue.
What burns them out?
I don't know that they're burnt out that early.
No, but what burns them out? What
The
are we,
FTOs? Have you? I know-
the overtime
Have
or?
you, no, you're constantly monitoring somebody, right? Think about like your child never leaves your side for
They're not
3
responsible
years.
just for themselves.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
They're not just responsible for themselves, going to work and doing their shift and handling their paperwork. They're making sure this person here doesn't get hurt.
They can't
They're,
leave.
they're watching them and watching everyone around them, how they're reacting to this new person. And after month after month after month, very draining.
I had 8 recruits in a row in my car when I was on the road, and you start getting a little stir crazy because you have no personal time. No, you know, if you have to use the restroom, they have to stand outside the restroom and wait for you because you can't have them go out onto the floor without you because you're responsible, right? They're not trained. The liability falls on that FTO. So that's where they get burnt out.
Okay.
There's no personal time, and not that they come to work for personal time, but there is no time to even collect their own thoughts because they're constantly worrying about
No
something.
time to recharge.
Yeah.
Okay. And some of the questions I'm asking now is where I'm just spitballing with you. It's not more or less me calling something out. I mean, what about the pipeline? What about you told me at one point, I think in one of our phone conversations, that Gateway only does it twice a year or something.
Yeah, we started using MATC in addition to Gateway. So MATC, maybe once every 2 months they have them. So they rotate more often.
So there's the ability to
Yeah.
get,
Yeah.
cause I think we just need, and we just need to have more in the pipeline.
When we talk
because-
about the pipeline, are you talking about like the recruitment side of things? Or, I mean, we have, like I said, we have 28 in training currently, which is a lot, right? 28 of our correctional professionals are in training,
And how many are behind them for when some fail or leave?
5 now.
Right. See, I mean, that's that's the pipeline to me, not the
There's-
28.
We have 5 so we have 5 on deck, right? Waiting to
Right.
be hired in March, which they asked me to pause, which I said, no, right? So that we constantly are recruiting, and another reason I don't want to pause is those 5 will go somewhere else, right? They're actively seeking
can be waiting.
employment. They're not gonna sit and wait for Kenosha County. They don't love us that much.
Do we pay them at some point? I mean, what? I think about I think about joint services, I think about the 24/7 we had to do.
Yeah.
And I mean, one of the first things I did way back in the day when I became chair of joint services, I whiteboarded the whole process from when we try to hire somebody to when they're producing by themselves. And there's a time gap in there. And I always looked at that time gap and tried to see what we could shorten or what all the phases were in that. And I'm sure you have the same thing. Okay, I don't know if there's ways to shorten the time gap. At what point do we start paying people? I mean, are they sitting and waiting for 2 months to get on in the corrections department with no money or no nothing? I mean,
So
and I apologize
No,
if
you're
this has
fine.
been going over before, but
we've
just trying to
definitely
dive in.
expedited things. We have our recruitment and retention deputy, right? So the minute they apply, I don't want to say minute, right? Within the first 72 hours of their application, there is actual physical or phone contact, right? They reach out to that applicant, do a phone interview, make sure that they really apply to the right job, right? Make sure they have the proper qualifications, just the minimums, right? To move them on to that next step. So throughout that process, that deputy is constantly in contact with not only correctional officers, but deputy candidates, right? They're constantly in contact. They don't get paid until they're onboarded to that first day. So Tony, we say 4 weeks, maybe from application to in the door, which is a
And
lot
pay?
faster than we have.
4 weeks to get paid.
4 weeks to be,
This is the.
Put on
interview
payroll.
process. This
So
is
from the
not-
minute
Oh,
they-
yeah, that's great.
Okay.
the minute they apply to when we start them is, 4 to 6 weeks, I would say. 6 weeks when we have a backlog or, somebody's on vacation, I don't want to say 4 weeks and then you're like, well, I just got called from one of my constituents. He said it took 6. Right? But so we're a lot faster than we used to be. It used to be we only hired once a quarter, right? So that recruitment and retention deputy has personalized the experience of applying to us, right? There's actual, instead of getting an automated response from an email system saying we receive it, they get a phone call. So, which has helped us.
You said we lose a lot when they actually get into the blocks in front of the inmates and.
When I say a lot, I mean, losing
Occasion.
few is a lot, right? Losing any employee.
Well, anytime you
so-
lose one, it's
Yeah.
tough because you put so much into getting that one to that point.
Yeah.
That's what I understand. I
It's-
mean, maybe we bring them in there first.
Well, they do tours, tours, but I don't think it becomes real, right? It's not real when I
Yeah,
have my
I get it.
anorexia.
I get it.
But we explain that to them throughout the whole process, right? You understand what you're getting into. It's in the interview questions, right? You are gonna see X, Y, and Z, and a lot of it is X,
Mhm.
right? So, those are the discussions that are had, and on paper, right, it looks fine. But then when you get to the reality, me versus 50 inmates, I mean, I can tell you. just
It's
when I
daunting,
walk through
sure,
there
I
as a
get it, and
captain, they
yeah.
all come because they know you're the captain, they all have grievances. It's, it can be a little bit nerve wracking.
So obviously, we need to keep working on the hiring process, the pipeline, everything that we've been talking about. But it appears to me that we're staffed better than we have been in years past. I mean, we're pretty close to where we need to be staff wise. Right?
Yes, again, if I can get 28 employees who are now in training to the finish line, right? And then maintain their employment for 6 to 12 months, right? I don't know what it is.
Obviously, you're dreaming, but I get it.
Yes, but because they're not filling positions at 28, that's 28 openings hypothetically, right? They're, on paper, they're filled. But I have 28 positions that aren't being manned in the jail on a daily basis. And that's where that overtime comes in.
Go ahead.
If I can just make a comment. We are in a very low unemployment environment. When we're in a high unemployment environment, workers go for the jobs and they stay with them because there's nothing else out there for them to go to. We are not in that atmosphere. We have not been in that atmosphere for several years. We've seen it throughout the entire county, but as Chief Deputy said, this is not a fun job. We had difficulty retaining CNAs. CNA isn't an easy job either, but at least in many cases, they're dealing with a nice elderly person. Sometimes they are not. Sometimes they're dealing with someone who has a dementia or Alzheimer's, and they're not necessarily so nice, but it's a difficult job, but it's not the same atmosphere that these people are facing. And when you're looking at this type of a job and you know that, you know what, if I go down the road, I can make a couple dollars less, but I don't have to have things thrown at me that I wouldn't want thrown at me. They don't necessarily stick with it. So some of it is the victim of the times.
Okay, well. That's, I agree with all of that, and I agree with where you guys are coming from. Okay, so that being said, if we can't improve our pipeline and how many are in the back, how to get the 28 there quicker, if we can't improve any of that, then we need to look at our budgeting. Because you still have X amount that we need, and there's a big gap between money that we have and money that we need. So at some point, we have to accept where we're at with that and say, all right, we got to get closer to this. Cause I mean, I think we budgeted 1.5 million, 2 million in overtime, and it came up to 4 million. I mean, that's hard to cover. When you have no inmates and no vacancies, that's hard to cover. And that's just overtime. That's not operations or revenue or anything else that could go wrong or that you could have something with. So this is something we need to partner together to figure out. You know, I don't know the answer. I've been trying to vent it to him. I've been trying to vent it to her, but we just can't have the gap there between how much money we need and how much money we have. So if we can't improve any of that, and it is what it is, then those are the times we have to live in. And we have to budget correctly, and that's my take on it. So I would love to, it seems like you guys are thinking outside the box and doing everything you can to try to figure out how to bring overtime down. It looks like it's just as high or more than before COVID. So I don't know. I don't know. I don't know the answer like you don't know the answer.
I mean, I think we're tracking our numbers, right? We're making sure our efficiencies are efficient, right? We can't say no to everything, right? I mean, the dog and pony shows and things like that, right? The feel good things. It's difficult, right? When you have community members that need us to be at events and we worry about these kind of meetings, right?
Yeah. How much overtime really is that though? I mean, you skipping parades is not gonna, I don't know that's.
Parades is just one aspect. I mean, there's.
Yeah, I mean, I want you guys out there in the community. That's not my point. You know, I would love to see you guys at every parade, not just you, nothing against you being there by yourself. I mean, don't take it personally, but I mean, I love the sheriff's department or not department, whatever, office being out there, I do. I would love to have everything staffed, everything filled, us out there in the community doing everything we can, but those are our dreams for me. So now I sit here on finance and I have to make the money work. So, you know, I mean, I certainly don't think the sheriff's department is doing anything wrong here. I don't think that, you know, even there's a miscommunication in how you're trying to do it. I've just tried for so many years to understand anything we can to try to make it better. And I think you guys are doing that, but we still have these gaps that you and we're gonna have to address. So. Committee, now that I took up all this time, Supervisor Kirby.
So first thing I want to say is I love this extra data. Like, this is really good. I think this really helps us understand where the overtime is coming from. And I'm just gonna kind of echo Supervisor Gens here. If this is what it is, so be it. I just want to make sure we are budgeting correctly. Obviously, we don't want you staying out of the community. That's really important. The community needs to see you out there. One thing I am wondering is if we can get some of this data by hours, so we can get an idea of that breakdown, how much of this overtime is really due to increased wages and not increased hours of overtime. Because it might be that you're incurring less hours, that you've made all the right changes you need to do, and it would be good to see that.
Supervisor Kirby.
This worksheet is hours, not dollars.
I missed this one.
All right.
And you're not, I mean.
No, but I like it.
Yeah, that's very helpful. That's exactly what you're asking.
Ask and you shall receive.
Yeah.
Thank you. You were ahead of the game.
That was
Thank
very
you.
helpful to us.
Mind reading 101.
It was very helpful. I mean, because I have not seen it in the hours, so. I'm gonna lie, there's a lot of questions I had when I saw it. I'm like, well, right, the KCDC ones, and that's where we started having conversations about. Like how, right, what? And so that's what we're trying to figure out. And like I said, with the codes and everything that we're able to track, we just have to get them all implemented across the board. Right now, we're just tracking operations, but when those codes get built in, it takes time, right? To get those codes in detentions, it's gonna help us better understand. In one quarter, and especially not the fourth quarter, is a good indication of, like, we can't forecast, right? Because the fourth quarter, there's not as much PTO time being taken, things like that. There's not as much training, budget's already blown in the first two quarters, so we don't have to worry about backfilling for training at that point, other than our academies. So I think, you know, and we talked about today, I think, like, if we, you know, the first two quarters of 2025 will help us get really good data that can be, you know, and our data analysts can start digging deeper into these, and they're talking about pivot tables and all these other crazy things.
Speaking in language.
Oh,
Yeah, yeah, right. And all these things.
All my favorite things.
Yeah.
Tables.
And I said, well, my math was bad because there's 4 quarters in the football game, and there's 4 to every quarter.
His brain.
So my brain was, yeah.
Like, what are you doing?
They're like, stop.
Oh, yes.
All right, so anyways, yeah, so I think the more that we can pinpoint the data points, right, to actually get people much smarter than myself to look at it and actually forecast things and understand where, because like we broke down, you know, I was prepared, we broke down our FTO overtime, we broke down, you know, is it, like, each one of those things in operations, we're gonna be able to break down in detention and start to understand. I mean, obviously 28 people in training is a huge lift for any organization in any type of work, right? And in any arena. So there's a lot of cost to that, and there's no, I mean, you can't even figure that out until they're trained. Right? And
You still have the floor. Did you have any other questions?
Oh, no, I just wanted to say, if I'm looking at these hours, this paints a much nicer story than if you're looking at just the pure dollars.
Yeah.
This really shows like all the effort that went into reducing overtime hours.
That's
So
why
I really like,
try to calm it
thank
down.
you so much. I'm
I
so
had
glad
to
you
think
knew what I
about
was
it.
gonna ask for.
I'm looking at dollars, and then I said, you know, we've given such increases specifically in the correctional area, knowing that there were these vacancies. And then I asked for reports based on hours, so that the pay part is not part of the calculation. It's it's the hours themselves, because that I felt would help us identify where this is happening. And I will point out, when you look at deputy, there really is, it's been decreased over time, but it's in that same general ballpark where the jumps are coming out, more the DSOs, which are KCBC.
Yeah, you can budget off the deputies. You know what it's gonna be.
Yeah.
Mhm.
It's fairly consistent.
If you look at 19 and 21, I feel like those are probably what the norm should be,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
In a perfect world. 2020 is the outlier because we had no vacancy sign up at the jail, right? You're only allowed in if you had a violent misdemeanor or a felony charge. So, so I think getting to that point of 19 and 21 is probably more realistic. It's just, we got to figure out how do we navigate back to that
Mhm.
point.
And I realized today that, I mean, you asked for 19 through 24, and that's what we gave you. But Claire and I were talking just before this meeting, and in 18 is when we were analyzing overtime for going to the 12-hour shifts. So this was good to me because we weren't trying to factor in a year that was on a different shift schedule and what. But I also think maybe I should have looked back at 18 and 17 to say, what was the norm then? Because I think we're gonna find that it was higher, and that when you put in the 12-hour shifts in 2019, that did decrease over time. It was successful, but then the pandemic hit, and then rolling out of it, and then you had the huge vacancy. So it's been just a change in the hours.
Pleasure, Tom.
Thank you. No, most of my questions have been answered, but I'm wondering how much of an impact do like emergencies play into to overtime, like car crashes, shootings, things like that?
So it's broken down into several different ways.
Yeah.
So there's gonna be, however many, 1, 2, 3 hours, calls that happen at the end of a shift, everyone's get there, car crash, things of that nature. That's the bulk, right? Of the completed reports, things that have to be done immediately. The emergencies, like we have teams like MCAT, major crash and accident team. Obviously tactical team, bomb squad, those types of things. But like when we have big emergencies, like obviously 2020, big situation here, but that was just an unprecedented time. But when all the different instances happen, we have to respond to them either for the fruition. Another thing is assisting other agencies. When they ask for assistance, like we did a criminal investigation for Racine County. That's not, we don't write that, they don't write us a check, right? And that investigation took off. It went statewide, went nationwide. So our detectives that were on that case worked literally almost day and night for weeks before the Fed said, you know, we have to take this because you don't have jurisdiction where this thing's going.
Yeah.
So thank goodness they did. But before that, unprecedented amount of overtime because we were grabbing guys and gals from every direction to get that case done. And if you understand the significance of a particular case like that and what it entailed, no one at the table would say anything other than go do whatever you have to do to stop these people. You know, so that's one of those instances.
So I have Q4 exact numbers if you want to know, right? So out of all of our overtime, like the numbers of the things we were tracking, the largest amount was backfill of PTO time, right? Or backfill from training. Completed assigned cases, that's what you're talking about. Like when a deputy is either stuck on a call, accident at the end of their shift, or they have to write the reports because they're in custody and they have to go home, things like that. That was 604 hours in Q4.
November 1st, January 3rd.
Okay, so the quarters, my quarter, not everybody else, 4 months. So that's November 1st to January 31st. So, but 604 hours is the second highest thing. The next highest is conveyance overtime, which is our prisoner transports. That's 603. TRT, 104 hours. Assist other agencies the sheriff talked about was at 100 hours. And that covers like your question.
Yeah, can we get that on email or something?
You know, and these are my notes, but I can make them into an email, yeah.
Yeah.
On my computer. Read them.
Can I interrupt?
Yeah.
My plan is to take those numbers out of our staffing system and automated report that will get monthly and then quarterly.
Okay.
And then it will be forwarded to the chief sheriff and Kelly, and then they can share it.
Okay, thank you. Other question is, I guess, does it make sense to ask when in the fiscal year do we notice, oh, we're gonna go over overtime salary? Does that make sense?
Now, we're doing a general fund report starting in July.
Okay,
So we're doing projections, working with the school managers and throughout all the way till April of the following year.
mhm,
So as you know, there's a lot of journal entries and things that still have to get worked out.
sure,
But, you know, by this time, within the next month or so, we pretty much know where we're gonna be.
okay. That,
We have to report. So my goal is that by the time I start, at the time that I'm getting my reports in January, February, and March, it's all stuff you guys have all already.
When we get the report that there's a problem, it's already too late.
okay. Yeah. Then other question, you guys know how other Wisconsin counties are doing compared to us? You do.
That was one of my first
We've
questions
been calling
to
it
him.
all these questions.
So we are no different than the counties that responded to me in my chief deputy groups. Other than the really small counties, almost everybody has doubled their budgeted number in terms of overtime. So I'm trying to find ones that are actually, some of them are really small, like they have $125,000 overtime budget. That doesn't really count. Racine County, they budgeted 1.3, so they break theirs down in sworn, jail, and then administration. So their total budgeted was roughly 1.8, and they were at 3.1 million. Rock County was at 475,000 budgeted, and they're at 1.2. Walworth, which is, they're a lot smaller than us, but they were budgeted at 1.178, and they came in at 2.467. Portage County, again, small county, 226,000, and then they're projected to be at 539.
Even the small counties that are over half, I mean, over doubled. I mean, you gotta think about it as it's relative to them being smaller. That's just as big of a hit as it is equal to us. I mean, so it doesn't matter if they're smaller, if they're all going over by double the amount, it's the same problem.
Okay.
Yeah, and they do the same, like they have to do the same thing as you guys are having to do, try to figure out where that money is coming from. Those are I mean, I have some other really small ones, but
Sure.
they're kind of funny when we're looking at our numbers. We're like, I don't want those numbers.
Yeah, I know, you said 125.
Yeah, there's some jails that actually feed their inmates by going to.
What was ours during
Yeah.
that time?
I'm sorry?
What was ours? What did we budget?
We
1.8 million or
Yeah.
what did we budget?
In
we
24,
don't like to talk about that.
24, we budgeted,
I know, that's why I'm asking.
we were at about 1.1 million and we came in at, we're expecting to come in about 3.9. In 24.
In 24, we budgeted 1.1.
So, but I
I
also
just
want
had a
to
heart palpitation.
make sure that you.
And we're
understand
coming in
that-
at 3.9?
Yes.
So you gotta remember, we run two jails, third largest in the state of Wisconsin in terms of inmate population, right? Dane County didn't send me numbers, Milwaukee County, those are the only two that are bigger than us. Right? Brown County didn't send us, they're close, right? We might fight with them, who's bigger, you know? But these jails are housing 200 inmates, 350 inmates max. And we're pushing 800, when we're in our ice days, 1,000 inmates. So it's hard, it's not an apples to apples comparison when you're talking about these other counties, right? So-
That's fine. I'm not even thinking about the other counties at that point. I'm going 1.1 to 3.9. Throw every other county out.
That's the
That's a
extra,
big.
that's the extra jail. They only have two. No, we have
Give me
two.
a attack.
Don't give me a tech. Extra jail.
That's, wow.
You bring a 78.
Yeah, that's-
yeah.
Yeah, that's. What about, now this is a real
I got more
off the wall
questions.
suggest, oh, okay, you still have the floor. Keep going.
Okay, so are they also experiencing the same retention, recruitment issues as well?
I mean, not only the state of Wisconsin, but everywhere across the
Everywhere?
United States.
Exact same story.
The captain's actually going there.
We come from trainings and we ask, I mean, we have classes on it. It's how do you get people going? And it's like Claire's clear. Evergreen, I learned that term from her a while back and it just never stops. We just keep going and take a deputy from here and he has some chutzpah and he's good. So we stick him in that spot and pump him up and give him the resources he needs and get him going. And then we all live our lives and we grab people from our little corners of our life and call him and hand him a telephone. And
I mean,
we
that's where
recruit all day, every day.
they talked about the increase in wages. That's kind of the game that is played across the state, right?
Yeah.
We pay 25, they pay 27, we pay 29, they pay 31, right? We compete with DOC.
And signing bonus, DOC.
So
It's just all.
I can tell you, and sorry that I say this out loud, my folks, and sorry if you're out there listening on the owl, they're making a lot of money. Right? They need time. They need their time off, right? And we can't give that to them because there's no opportunity because it's the evolution, the constant revolving door and getting 28 people on the floor, right? So you see the numbers, the hours, right? Times that by their wages, they're making money. They want more base pay, I'm sure. I'm not gonna say they don't, but if you ask, if you did a general census of the employees in the detentions world, they want their time, which is why we went to the 12-hour shifts. That's why I sat here 5 years ago, whatever it was, and we sat here and we said, we can give them a 3-day weekend. Well, those 3-day weekends don't come because they're getting ordered in for overtime. So,
How has morale and mental health of these deputies and overall law enforcement officers have been with these issues?
we're trending up since 2020. Obviously, there's nowhere to go after 2020, but it's constant battle, right? We've been doing everything we can as a team to give them as much as we can afford, right? Budget. You said you gotta shore up the budget. We've made cuts across the board of things that we obviously want to do. You know, we could do better. We just got our new therapy dog. She's very young. She's only 10 weeks old, but she's beautiful. She's cute. She's already making an impact because she sat on the most unrealist detective's lap and she smiled. So it worked. I was actually away at training. They sent me a picture. They said, "Have you ever seen him smile?"
Great. What do you see his picture? All the trained observers, a little dog. He said, he's smiling. Hey, he is. I said, have you ever seen this before? Never.
But that's just one step, right? And that puppy is housed at in the detective bureau, which is a good spot because the handler is amazing. At a jail incident, he was there that night, and those jailers thanked him. The captain, who has very little emotion, even was a little, excited about the fact that these employees all gave great feedback. Right, that this dog was present, it helped. And we have some of the biggest correctional officers known to mankind, and even they were happy to see little joy, right? So baby steps, we're trying to do everything we can.
Sure.
It's never enough, but everything costs money. So.
Okay. That's all I have.
I was thinking about this. Now, this sounds really goofy, so walk with me on this. Okay. What if we had like a group of like 10 corrections officers as a bench and we had like mandatory time off or something? That's what I see as the problem. Time is the issue, not even money. But with all the call-ins and stuff, I mean, could we build up, have 10 extra? And okay, so and I'm looking at this from a money standpoint. So if we have to pay an extra 10 to be on this bench and it cuts down overtime, I almost think that would pay for it. Is it my all wet, or is that an idea? I mean,
So you're basically talking about hiring 10 additional staff.
yeah.
Okay.
And have them be like fill-ins for call-ins, for people needing making everybody take a day off or something. Time is the key here.
I mean, it's a great idea, right? Obviously, right? But now you say 38 that are in training,
Yeah.
right?
Well, I'm counting on you getting those 28 into the.
I think it's a great idea. I think, so right now we have the bottom 15%, right, where we have, and 15% of our staff is like 5 at each facility that are exempt from overtime because of their seniority, right? And so we just started that 2 years ago, that we give them exemptions, but that, again, their careers are different, they're longer, so that list doesn't, but expanding it to 10, 15, right, or having a rotational list, I think.
Right,
idea.
right.
I don't hate the idea, and the bench thing is great, and yes, we accept your offer to take 10 more FTEs. But 100%, we have to build up, we have to have a trained staff, because once we're fully trained, Claire and I and the captains in here we did the 12-hour thing together. The land of unicorns and rainbows is, if we're fully staffed, they are actually gonna have more time off than they've ever had in their lives, but.
Yeah, we're not gonna get
We're
to there.
6
I mean,
years
that
there.
obviously, we're not gonna get to there.
Well,
You know, I mean, we
I'm not
could,
saying never, I'm hoping that someday.
okay, I love your optimism, but, you know, I mean, I'm just thinking of, yeah, okay, you have pains of having to train 10 more, okay?
Mhm.
And I'm not saying start it now, but I'm just saying at some point, hiring 10 people and using them to fill time gaps has to be, I mean, if we could cut $750,000 out of overtime by having a 10-person bench, don't you think they pay for themselves? So I don't know that answer to that.
We had the CCE program, right? You guys remember, some of you guys may remember it, some of you guys don't. That CCE program it was very strong in the beginning because of the community ties that we had with partnerships, like in the community, that would give us people that needed part-time jobs, right? It ebbs and flows, right? You know, the unemployment rate, right? Not, you know, college students are our key targets there, right? If you're going to college at Gateway, you can come and make $27 an hour. It's a great part-time job, but we also need 3 months to train them. So the only time we can grab those people is during the summer, right? So we curtail our recruitment for those to the, you know, April timeframe. So yes, the answer is yes. That would be the best thing, you know, to have more people for. But we also cross-train, right? We started that in 2018. So they can work overtime at both buildings, and, you know, these things, they work, but there's a lot of overtime, so it's.
Right, and like you said, if you would ask on a survey what they want, it would be time. It would be a day to gather their thoughts. You know, I take that over, you know, $100. You know, if I could recharge my battery for a day with my family, over $100, I would take it in a heartbeat. So, I got you. I'm on a roll. Okay. All right, Barno, what do you got?
I don't wanna rain on that parade, but see, they can't get there. They can't get to the full staff. So adding another 10, they can't get there to begin with. And that bench of 10, that would be $1 million. You add in health insurance, WRS, benefits, everything, that's $1 million. So if you save 750,000 in overtime,
I just threw that number out there.
you're down. Let's go to 250.
We do try getting there, right? When I talk about overhires, we've tried to get to a plus, right? It's maintaining the plus that we're.
Yeah.
You know, it's not that we're hiring for a bench, even though that's a great idea. We're hiring because we know that there's gonna be.
Yeah, you know that out of those 28, they're not all gonna be there. You know, and out of the ones that are there's gonna be people leaving that you don't even know about right now that are gonna cause the cycle to continue. So I get all that. You know, all we could do is try to gather the data, come up with ideas, try to be as efficient as we can. I get all that. I love, and I appreciate you guys coming in and talking to us about this. Because this is a partnership that we're in here to try to work on this. I mean, I'm not asking you to come up with every answer and nor us. I mean, it's a matter of working together. So I don't know if you could call it a bench or just a plus thing, or it might cost $1 million. And if we save, $1.5 million in overtime, it's worth it. I don't know. I haven't analyzed. I sell furniture. I don't micromanage the sheriff's department. So, but I do have to look out for the money. My 7,500 people put me here to look out for their money. And that's what I'm trying to do. So all this brainstorming and what we're doing, I appreciate the hell out of it. But at the end of the day, we need to make sure that our budgeting practices and how we use the money equate to what we need it to be. I mean, we can't have 1.1 million budgeted in overtime and have a 3.9 number. I don't care how many jails we have. That's a big miss. And we can't have big misses like that. So that's where I'm coming from. I don't know that this is gonna, get us anywhere, but I appreciate the conversation. And I think in the future, we need to look at operations, at revenue, at overtime, and all these numbers and realize we don't have inmates and we don't have extra salary spots that haven't been filled to cover these other things. All right, I'm done. I got nothing else. Anybody else on the committee have anything? Do you guys have any closing thoughts? I mean,
No, we appreciate the conversations. I mean, like I said, I mean, if we're sitting here telling you that we're just like, making it rain overtime, I would understand the consternation, but we really are trying to. And trust me, they can tell you how many times I say no in a day. It's a lot. Yeah.
They tried to get to me, I said, I got to talk to them.
I believe it. I mean, I can see that there are things being, put forward, moving forward that could help us and that we can look at. So I agree, we are moving forward, but I can't have general fund reports that have these big gaps. So we need to work on that. So I appreciate you guys coming, really appreciate it.
Absolutely,
And,
glad to be here. Thank
if you come up with anything, let us know and, keep us posted on anything you have, how those 28 are doing. When do we expect them to be in there?
Well, this morning we had we met with the new hires and they're all bright and bushy tailed and get the emails, so-and-so is gone. We're so excited. So we're optimistic and we're looking forward to a big graduation.
So those 28, June, right? Not every single one. It's gonna be staggered.
Staggered,
Right.
yeah.
If the world were perfect, by June, they would all be on there.
So we need to revisit this right before budget time. See what kind of numbers we're doing and where we're at. Okay.
Better day.
All right. Thank you very much. Appreciate
Thank you
it.
guys.
Really appreciate it.
But probably a few hours in overtime for tonight.
Oh, for sure. Can you sign my card?
Whoever did all the talking shit.
On your next financial report, put just
Supervisor
against
Noodle.
related
Yeah.
overtime.
Yeah.
Just so you know, instead of a bar chart, I wanted a pie chart of cheese, a cheese wheel. They wouldn't let.
Queso.
I love it.
Feel free to come up with all kinds of fun queso ideas.
I thought you guys would at least bring some dip in. I
I'm
don't,
getting a hoodie. It says, Sheriff loves cheese. Queso.
That's great.
all right. Tax deed parcels. Oh, I forgot about you, Rich.
Hey, over there.
Sorry about that, Rich.
Okay, I would, guys, hi,
Saying
everybody.
I was a little long-winded. Is that what you're trying to say?
I didn't say it.
Oh, okay, all right.
Take a vote.
I know.
It's just been a long day. Did you guys hi, everyone. Did you get a chance to look at what Mary sent?
Mhm.
So where I'm going with this is I have several properties, but I could only get these 6 put together. These are the homes and these are the properties. Well, one of them's vacant land, but the rest are homes. They've all been up for auction 2 or 3 times. And we've had no interest. We might have interest in a property, but nothing near for the price that they were appraised at, even after lowering them 10% each time when they went back to auction. So my suggestion is, I mean, I feel like we have done it in good faith to try to sell these properties for the appraised value, which is, I think is too high. Even in comparison to what they were assessed at.
Are you looking for us to take action on this?
Mhm.
You are?
I am.
Okay, all right.
So I had given you guys just this, what I would like to put them up for. The only one I have a change on is the first one, the vacant land. I got a letter, or I got an email from, city, from the building, the ones who would approve,
Zoning or permit?
improvement.
Oh, yeah.
I can't think of the name of the department now.
Get the code enforcement or.
Well, like to approve if someone were to build a house.
Planning
And
and zoning.
yeah, it's not called that, but yeah. In the city.
In my mind, it can be called that.
Okay.
All right.
But so anyways, the email I got from him today, told me that this property cannot be built on. Therefore, it's not anywhere near, it's not even near trying to put it up for half of the, or, offering it to the abutting parcel owner for $2,000. It's not of value to anyone really except the abutting parcel owner. So I don't have a suggested price for that. They basically said to try to give it to the abutting parcel owner. We're paying to maintain it. And even though it's not a real big lot, it's still, we're gonna be paying for the snow removal that we're getting. We pay for the having the grass mowed, for cutting the tree because it keeps growing into the neighbor's house. It's more of it's definitely a problem for us, and it's not you can't build on it.
So you're saying give it to him for $2,000 or just give it?
No, probably he doesn't want it. Probably he doesn't. I'm guessing he probably doesn't want it because he doesn't want his tax bill to go up. But, I'm saying, even, we could try to see if he would be interested in buying it for, $500 and combining it with his parcel. Or less, but we're not going to sell it to a developer or someone who's going to build a house.
I think you should just go and give him a letter that you'll give it to him. At this point, we're not gonna generate any money on this. And
Right, we're not
actually,
gonna- it's not gonna
actually
pay
the
back.
cost of us owning it is that we're incurring costs just by us owning it.
Correct.
It,
And it doesn't serve any purpose.
right,
To us.
right.
It would to him. He used to park on it, so.
Well, we'll make sure he doesn't park on it if he doesn't take it.
So
Build a fence.
that's the only one that I had to change on. The other ones, if you have any questions of where it came up with those dollar amounts or. I'm trying to cover the county.
Yeah.
And
The other ones that are listed, these are all houses?
yes, these are
And they're
houses.
not selling even at,
Well, the last time they were, so we had to do it at the appraisal price, lower it, they've been lowered.
even at
some,
that price? Wow.
and we're still not selling them. So the one that is the lowest does not have its own driveway. It has a egress, ingress,
A shared
whatever shared. Well, it's not even a driveway. It's the deed says these 15 feet can be used to get to this house, basically. And it's not a driveway,
Yeah.
it's grass.
Yeah.
And so
How do they get there?
Drive on the
drive on the grass.
Which one is that?
It's over by the Boys and Girls Club. It's the
Mhm.
5106 14th Avenue. The house sits behind another house. And, when we were over there, the basement had water in it. The windows are all, like, there's boards over all the windows. We trying to have it all closed up, but in all these houses needed a lot of repair. And this one especially, I think is not a good house for us to own in that the way it sits, it could be a potential problem for a squatter, for drugs, anything like that. And I just think getting rid of it, and having someone rehab it, get someone living there will be better for everyone. Will be better for the city, it'll be better for us. So that's why I have it, and at $10,000, I'm guessing we'll probably sell it for more than that. But that at least pique interest to be throwing some bids at it.
Mhm.
I think we should take your number and reduce every one of your numbers by $1,000. And give the first one away. That's my opinion.
I have no problem with that.
I mean, instead of 50, have it 49. In case of 10, make it 9. In case of 50, make it 49. Just because it's under that.
I gotta remember.
It's a psychological, I've been doing that for 17 years, trying to get that, so.
Yeah.
$49.99.
Yeah. We have a
I mean, my pack of baseball cards cost, $1.99. It doesn't cost $2.
It's $1.99.
Just saying. That's my input, but what does the committee think?
I agree. I moved to reduce all the prices by $1.
By $5,000.
Yeah,
For 1,000, 5,000, not $1,
Give away that
Minus
first one.
and give away the first one.
Then moved by Supervisor Kirby, second by Supervisor Gama. Any questions or comments on that?
I just got one.
Sure. Supervisor Nudo, you have the floor.
The one that was 212,
Yes.
now coming down from 190 to 75.
Yeah, so if you looked at the pictures of this property, it is a large piece of property and a large building. It's an old clubhouse. This is out in Randall. It's an old clubhouse that had started to be renovated, but never was renovated into a single-family home. It still has the pool, which probably is not usable, and whoever purchases it is going to have to do repair on that. We have some pictures of the inside. You go, past the appraisal, we have more because we've been out there and we had to clean it all up. The outside of it, we had to do a lot of cleaning, but the pictures don't reflect the cleaning.
I think the appraisal.
We could only find
Yeah,
one person to do the appraisal.
yeah, but
We have another person doing stuff for us, but so it looks pretty good there in the snow, but we have pictures of when it's not cold. Keep going farther. These are not in the pictures I'm talking about are not in the appraisal, so keep going to the end of the appraisal.
That's bad.
Keep going. Okay, these pictures.
Oh, yeah.
So the house has a lot of potential, I think. But it's gonna take a lot to get it to where it needs to be. It's probably one of the houses that has the better potential, though it's not real attractive looking style, but it is in a decent neighborhood. The houses around there are probably between 250 and 500,000, and that's probably why. Yeah, because it's near a lake. It's not on the lake, but it's near a lake.
Is it TV there?
There you go. Vacation home park.
That includes.
And we've had it since January of 23, so this is too long
Yeah.
to continue to. And again, the longer these houses sit, the worse condition they get because they're not heated, they're not air conditioned. And you also run the risk of, people squatting. And we're not out in Randall looking at this. It's not like easy to go see. I've been out there, but it's not as easy to go see as the houses in the city.
I was just wondering because, from one
Big
ninety
jump.
down to 7, what's,
Well, and that's what I'm saying. I feel like the appraisal prices were really high because they were
they
even
were.
way
That's right,
above.
who did it?
Yeah, they're way above what they were assessed at.
Well, you got action on the other ones. These are the leftovers.
Well, yeah, I have more. These are
Okay.
just the ones that have been up 2 to 3 times. We have a lot more.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then, so when you say, so the one that's 50,000, what do you want it to be?
49.
49.9? Is that what you want?
No, 49.
49.
Yeah.
Okay. That's perfectly fine with me. I'm happy to do that.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. All those in favor?
I,
Any opposed? Passes unanimously. Thank you.
Okay, and I have one other request. The remaining properties, hey, somebody else took up all the time.
Okay, fair point.
We have some remaining properties, most of them being, vacant land, and we had agreed before on that, like, they don't sell, we do 10%. That's not helping us. That's not helping us get them sold, and without bringing these all to you right now, I'm asking if I can do, they're still appraised way higher than the assessed value was when we took it. And, which was in 23. And, so I'm asking, can I lower them like either 20% or 25% more to try to get these sold? It would still take them to it would still bring us to the point of collecting what is owed to the county. It doesn't go below what is owed to the county.
Say all of them, but
It's their list.
I don't think she's provided the list.
I didn't because I thought that this had all been prepared already. So I yesterday tried to throw that thing together. I have it here, of what I was thinking. Now, these have all been to auction one time, but they are, even bringing it down 25% for most of them does not even bring it down to what they were assessed at. But it's still higher than what they were assessed at when we took the property.
Supervisor Noto, you have a question?
how many do you want?
On the sheet, I have 9.
Would you give us an idea, just with the addresses where they're at and the price maybe?
Okay, so,
When
Mary,
would you
do
be
you want me
looking to do this? When would you be looking to do this?
well, we want to have an auction March 10th. So we have to get an approval now because we have to advertise, or 3 weeks out, we have to let the municipalities and the assessors know that we're putting these up for sale for this price.
Do you want me to make a copy of that really quickly for everybody?
Yeah, I'm sorry, I wasn't sure if I could discuss it or not, so.
Well, it's a tax deed parcel, right? You're giving us an update on it.
Yeah,
You can discuss it.
I didn't send it to you ahead of time. I didn't have it ready.
Well, yeah, that's got me in a tizzy, but yeah, I agree with that. But you can discuss it.
I got a picture of the kayaks. Sit here on the same.
Show Jeff.
Is that what it's gonna look like?
Yeah, I was trying to send an email, but the names aren't coming up on the phone. This is why you got from the website. He said it should look very nice.
Another state there. Yeah. Looking through these.
Like, just don't touch anything.
Okay. Thank you. Anybody, I'm not touching it. Here, get it out of my hands. You can pass it around.
I can see it. I mean, unless you want a closer look.
Can you see that far?
I can see that.
Okay.
Yeah. I've got my like newest pair of glasses on right now. I can almost see over there. No, I can see right there. Thanks.
Use kayaks, but cool.
Kayaks are so fun.
Are they?
Yeah. I don't like.
Could we make this break? Next time?
I'm sorry. I can hardly see it either.
Hold it up to your face.
Oh, do we? We all.
You can use your phone to zoom in.
No ice guy.
No, I'm not trying to be funny. I know people do that.
Like a magnifying.
Yeah, magnifying glass, yeah.
So it shows the minus 25% of the appraised value. And then in the column before it, it shows what their last assessment was in 23 for most of them. And then the last one is in 2019.
Doesn't have to be a decimal. There's one that shows 472,000 in city specials.
Yes,
Is that correct?
yes, that is, so do you know where Creative Space is downtown? It's the empty lot right next to Creative Space.
It used to be a parking structure.
Yeah, and the city raised it.
So that's why that's.
And the reason, like, yeah, that's why that one's so high.
Somebody wants to buy it for $500,000.
That's not what we marketed.
No, but you know, it was appraised at 118,000, but it was only assessed at 43.4. I don't, you know, and I'm going down 25% from the appraised value still has it at 88,000, which is out, nobody's gonna buy it for that. I know that, but we can do it. I just want to include these in the sale and give them a chance to have another opportunity.
Yeah, I would say that. I don't know if we could do together. Yeah. Yeah. I'll make it.
There's a motion on the floor by Supervisor Nudo to allow you to market these with the other ones with a 30% reduction from the appraised value. Is there a second on that motion? Seconded by Supervisor Kirby. Any discussion from the committee? I mean, looking at this,
Yeah.
I don't see a problem with that.
Yeah.
So next time, bring it all. Okay, no, we're gonna vote.
Okay.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passes unanimously.
Thank you.
Okay. All right, audit of bills, did we take care of that? We all signed.
Do we all sign everything?
Claire, you have a report?
Good evening, everyone. This should go pretty quickly, just here to share with you some information as required in your policy. We have reclassified a position in the sheriff's department that was an accounting associate position, and we're reclassifying it to an administrative assistant senior position. It's in the same pay grade. So with approvals, we just need to know.
Same pay grade, so nothing will change.
Yeah.
You're just renaming it.
Right, just the focus is going to more administrative than accounting. That's all.
Is there a motion to do that?
I moved to approve.
It doesn't be,
Oh,
it's
yes.
just information.
Oh, okay,
Oh,
all right,
perfect.
I don't have a problem with that. All right,
That's,
is that it?
That was it.
Wow, you, all this anticipation, it was like the Heinz ketchup bottle, and then all of a sudden you get up there. Okay, all right, thank you. All right, general fund.
But that's for last.
mhm.
That's what he said.
So,
General fund year-end forecast. We have another month worth of estimates and actuals put in with some accounting entries. So as you can see in the bottom line, it deteriorated a little bit, but this month I'm looking at this might be the floor. As far as the bad news, I'm hoping that from this point on, I'll go through in more detail, but hoping that this is the floor and it'll only get better from here if it does. On the human services operating surplus, they're reporting more and we're expecting potentially more from this as well. Workers' compensation, that's been finalized and that came in a nice surplus or above even what we were expecting. That's including our actuarial number that we got. Public Works operating surplus still clipping along at a healthy 300,000. Treasurer revenue, including the net unrealized gain on investments, had ticked up a little bit because of the unrealized gain for December is a higher number. Liability insurance, we took it up. We still have a couple of calculations left to go, but I'm looking at this as being conservative. Could be even a better number here. The decrease in tax delinquency reserve, that went up 100,000. And a couple went down to your general investment interest revenue. I think we're going to end up break even at budget. And then the miscellaneous is kind of evening out at this point. Sheriff's Department, we had to take that up between the operating expenditures and the revenue. The revenue, I think, is going to bottom out at that point, but I think we still have some operating expenditures to get through and put on there. So that's going to worsen, I'm thinking. Health insurance deficit, I think that's going to deteriorate some more. So a little more detail on the health insurance. As I have been reporting all year, prescription drug expenses, especially for specialty drugs, went up quite a bit this year. We are hoping for a 10% reduction because of going to our new PBM, but in fact, looks like we're gonna end up with a 30% increase. That was coupled with our rebates. So unfortunately, the drug companies not only increased their prices, but then they also cut back on the rebates that they were providing. So we got a double whammy on that. And prior to about August, September, our claims were doing well. And the thought was that they would offset some of the increase in the prescription drugs, but the claims took a turn for the worse in the last 4 months of the year. And so we're actually going to end up a little bit over budget on claims. So altogether, we're going to end up with a deficit in health insurance. Sales tax revenue, you probably heard from different sources that we had a spectacular November. It's 900,000 more than it was from last year. But I took it only down a little bit because I'm worried that November took some of December figures, and our December number from last year was 2.3 million. If we could get a revenue number starting with a 2, then that number will come down. But when I looked at the last 3 years, we've averaged about 3.4 million between November and December. So, I mean, if we end up with only 1.5 million or so for December, then that's gonna, or that number's gonna get worse. So I don't want to be overly optimistic on that one. Circuit court revenues, that's pretty much finalized and down a little bit. Overall, we're overall in the same ballpark, 300,000, and there are a number of accounting things that we have to do, even in the health insurance. We're learning that some of the estimates that we had, so take, for example, our stop loss. When we had stop loss insurance with Humana, the same same plan administrator. We would get immediately a credit for a stop, any claim that we'd be paying out that was in excess of our stop loss. We would get that credit immediately, but because we have two different companies doing that, there's a lag. So I have to work to figure out what that lag is and make sure that I recapture all the credits that should be able to put back against 2024 and lower that number. We're working through figuring out that timing and stuff. So it's that sort of thing that we're still trying to iron out. So by next month, we'll start getting a little more concrete numbers on that. But that ends my report. Any questions?
So sheriff operating expenditures deficit, $675,000.
Which one?
Items causing decrease to the general fund. The number one thing, sheriff operating expenditures deficit, $675,000.
That's how much it went up there.
Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, that's the difference right there.
Yeah.
500,000 in health insurance deficit and 125 in the sheriff operating revenue. So the sheriff's responsible for 800,000 of this.
Yes. And we still have more to go.
Well, I don't think it's gonna get better.
No.
So, you know, I mean, these numbers aren't good. So are you looking at anything to be able to cover any of these numbers, or it's just other than what you mentioned with the sales tax? Is that the only other one that could help us?
No, the human services operating surplus. We're expecting that to be better than the 2.9 as well. We're still ironing a few things out, but that could be materially higher than that number as well. So that would offset some of the. So we're expecting
Human services,
So
that's helping up the rest of our shortfalls.
Right. So that's why I'm saying that this number at the bottom, I'm hoping this is the worst it's gonna be. It could be better.
All right, we're gonna have to come up with something. I wanna see the next one to see where that goes, to see if we do get any relief. Because we can't have this. I don't know. I mean, maybe we don't wanna raise taxes or anything, but if we're not getting the revenue, if we're not getting the money, how are we? We can't operate like this. So we'll see what happens. Do you have any thoughts on that, or, I mean, we just.
Well, when we get to the point where we know where we're gonna land for sure, there are some things that we can do to talk about that.
Okay. I'm not for pulling money out of the reserves either, so.
Yeah.
That's not, I never look at that as an option, so, but we'll see, we'll talk about it after the next one. I mean, you should have more, the concrete numbers after the next one, right?
Yeah, we should get our December sales tax numbers sometime next week, probably more towards the end of the week. I started checking for that. It can come out anytime after the 16th. So I have it marked on my calendar to start on the 17th, but I know it won't be ready on the 17th. But I'm hoping by the end of the week it will be. That'll give us at least that's our last sales tax revenue item for 24. And keep in mind, this is 24. It is what it's going to be. I mean, we can't change a budget, it's 25 that we need to.
That's exactly the point.
25.
I agree.
There were things that were adjusted in 25.
Yeah.
But-
I'll go through those.
Yeah.
Starting next month.
Okay. I mean, I
End
want,
up in a certain spot here, then these are the things that we knew when we were doing the budget for 2025. We knew.
yeah, you were looking at how it was trending and where it was going,
All
so,
we have to,
all right.
what we did.
Well, we'll see what the next one comes up. Are we gonna get, the human services number by the next one?
Yes.
Okay, so we'll have both the numbers that could help us by the next one, just so we can see where we're at.
Yep.
All right, I look forward to seeing that. Okay. Anything else, committee? No, okay.
Motion to adjourn.
It's been moved by Supervisor Thomas, seconded by Supervisor Kirby to adjourn. All those in favor?
Aye.